so many people in Bitcoin love to talk about number go up and like they get excited about the price and it hits $100,000 and now it's like 120 and whatever. So it's always in relative to US dollars. That's what people typically quote. US dollars is what most people, certainly Americans, but people globally like generally understand what a dollar is worth. It's extremely rare to quote the price of Bitcoin relative to gold.
Right.
And I really haven't thought too much about that. But then just the other day, you mentioned like Danny gave a shout out to Danny for I forget exactly what, but I mean basically relating it to that metric.
Yeah, I'll pull up the tweet.
So then I was curious about the history chart, you know, because I'm aware gold has increased from in the neighborhood of, it's basically doubled in the past four years or so.
Yeah.
From like 1,600 and something to 3,300 and something per ounce. So I was just curious about how does that match up to Bitcoin's rise, stuff like that. And obviously you can cherry pick various time frames to pick your story, but I was just surprised that because usually Bitcoin outperforms like everything if you zoom out to 4+ years. Obviously, if you zoom into less than a year, then it's all bets are off.
Yeah.
But if you zoom out enough, and usually it's 4 years, it's just a guarantee that it like wildly outperforms anything you compare it to. But when I looked at gold the past 4 years, it actually was flat. Now, in the intervening 4 years, it went up and down, but it's basically Bitcoin has not gained value on gold in the past 4 years. That took me by surprise. So the main thing I think
in gold terms,
yeah,
BTC measured in gold.
Yeah. It's surprising me because I'd say the most common elevator pitch or anchor to convince people like, oh, what is Bitcoin's TAM or market value is gold, because gold is kind of indisputable in terms of like what is its market cap. It's been around thousands of years. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't believe in it or don't like it as an investment vehicle, but you can't dispute that it's worth this much money and it has a long history. It's just indisputable.
Right.
So Bitcoiners have the similarities between Bitcoin and gold are quite, there's a lot of overlap. Bitcoin has almost every property that gold has. It's only missing one or two. Like it only has really like one or two drawbacks to gold.
Primary one being just it's not windy in the same way. Like gold's 5,000 years.
No, it needs the internet. One, and then it can have software bugs. Like gold can't have software bugs. So I think those are like the two inherent drawbacks it can't be. But it has tons of advantages over gold, right? So Bitcoiners, like that's pretty, like once you see that, it's hard to unsee. And then you're like, well, obviously Bitcoin is going to eat gold's lunch. And that doesn't mean gold goes to zero, because again, it has these inherent advantages over Bitcoin. So I think it'll always have value. But the relative value between Bitcoin and gold, you know, we all expect Bitcoin to rise and probably just far surpass gold. And then you can get, you know, you can compare it to real estate and bonds and all this other stuff to size the market. But because it's still much less than gold, I would have just expected over the past 4 years, and we're kind of in a bullish market. It's not like we're in the trough of a bad winter or something, that it wouldn't have been flat relative to gold, and it has. So my advice to us and everyone else is we should talk about and look at the price of Bitcoin relative to gold as much as we do the US dollar.
I agree.
I think it's way healthier. And I think that actually was your point, or that Danny was making that point or whatever, right? So I think we should. So like we should develop the discipline to, celebrate milestones relative to gold as much as we do US dollar.
Right. And I think there's another piece of context to add there, which is, Danny was making some crazy price predictions, and I've also made some, I don't care too much about the price, but made some predictions around price over the next whatever year that a lot of people are like, that sounds pretty wild. And I think the key, one of the key pieces of logic, at least for Danny, and I just kind of got this a little bit intuitively, is, when you're pricing in dollars, the whole reason we have Bitcoin in the first place is I always think about Bitcoin as sort of like the metric unit for value. And I think one day that'll be measured in joules. once we're fully monetized. But the point is, like, if I told you, like, hey, like, how tall are you today? You know, I go from being, well, hey guys, I'm actually 6'5" now. And you're like, what? When did you turn 6'5"? It's like, well, when I changed the definition of an inch. It's like meaningless, right? If I'm telling you, like, hey guys, you know, it's $120,000. It's like, cool, but like, what is the purchasing power of a dollar today versus in 2020 if we printed, you know, 50% more dollars or 25% more dollars? And I've seen, you know, reports that you need to earn 25% more to be competitive.
What if I told you there are 2.1 quadrillion Bitcoin?
Oh yeah. Yeah, fair enough. So anyways, but the point is, gold, obviously, even though it's not perfect and there is some, you know, whatever, 1, 2, 3% increase in supply every year, it's much better than the dollar. And so it's much more interesting to measure that. And Danny's point was the bull market and all-time high actually just happened last week.
So, I'll read the tweet. I pulled it up. So the tweet from Danny says, looking at Bitcoin priced in gold, we've only just reached the previous cycle's high.
Correct.
A historically proper cycle move up could put us at a ratio of 137, which at current gold prices would be $479,765 by the end of the year.
Yeah. So another mental exercise I did after seeing that data and thinking about it more. Like, given that the price of Bitcoin relative to gold today is basically the same as it was 4 years ago, if we knew that then, or gold has been a better investment the past 4 years. That's the assertion I make, because like obviously it performed the same and it's less risky because it has thousands of years of history. Obviously, anyone investing in Bitcoin relative to gold today expects it to outperform because it has way more risks. It has quantum computing risk. Does gold have quantum computing risks? No. So Bitcoin still has a number of risks. Obviously, every year it gets de-risked, but there's still a number of risks with Bitcoin. Gold doesn't have them. So if we knew right now that over the next like 8 years, Bitcoin's going to $1 million. And gold is going to $30,000.
Which is like a 10x?
They're both 10xing roughly. Mm-hmm. That if we knew that for a fact over the next 8 years, 10 years, whatever, which would you invest in? Obviously gold, because it has less.
You got
risks.
a regular Peter Schiff here.
Yeah,
I mean, like guys, hold on. Like, I mean, if we knew that's the performance, the price performance. Why would you not invest in gold?
Well, if you know that's the price performance, so what does it matter, right?
Yeah. But anyway, that's why, I mean, I'm not predicting that's what's going to happen. I'm saying if we knew that was the performance, obviously gold's a better investment. So my main learning is that we need to monitor that metric way more often. Yeah. And that's at least as healthy of metric to look at as the dollar, if not a better metric to look at as a health metric for the adoption of Bitcoin.
So there is one really important piece of color. I don't have the data in front of me, and like I haven't done thorough analysis, but I seem to recall this guy Charles Capriel puts out some really nice charts, including the Bitcoin energy value of money, which is like what I chart pretty closely, and which is like the basically cost of Bitcoin measured in joules. And I think I remember reading this on one of his charts. It basically like his sort of like takeaway is that gold pops before Bitcoin does always. I don't know if that's true, and I'd have to go back and check that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's what I remember this. That's not the case?
I definitely don't think that's the case.
Okay, well,
they're quite uncorrelated actually.
So, well, at least in this market, what he was claiming is that, give it whatever 3 to 6 months after gold starts popping, Bitcoin's going to start ripping. And it seems interesting to me that if that's the case and we're just starting to rip and we just touched all-time high and this whole thing is extremely reflexive, that the bull market literally hasn't started. And so that all of the like crazy FOMO and reflexivity, like basically the argument is like things are going to be more or less the same as it was every other cycle, maybe a little bit dampened as it does every cycle, but like it's just the size is bigger and people are like, oh, but that's impossible. How do we get the kind of capital inflows to get to $500,000 a coin? And the answer is, well, from institutions and countries. So
I agree overall with the point that we should be using gold as a better metric or kind of better yardstick to try to understand truth here than US dollar. So overall, I'm on board with that idea. I think the one thing I would say that is a risk to gold is the existence of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is so much better in so many ways. Not to suggest that Bitcoin has to go to zero, but
gold.
Not that gold has to go to zero, but just as like people who are born today, never knew a world without Bitcoin. It's just a thing, just like we've never known a world without gold. And I think, people will update their expectations around how, they want internet native tools instead of the offline stuff. And so I think there is some risk to gold because Bitcoin is a better version along most kind of assessments. It doesn't mean it's going, it doesn't mean one wins and the other loses. They could both, they could both grow, or one might grow and the other might shrink a bit. But I would say that there is a risk to gold that we should be cognizant of, which is that Bitcoin now exists and it's a credible competitor.
That's why I expect Bitcoin to outperform gold over time.
Yeah.
So let's keep looking at that metric. I mean, the reality is, the reason why I don't think there's that gold pops for Bitcoin is because I have the gold price chart in my head pretty well from like 2010 on, and like from 2010 until 2021 or so, it's pretty flat.
Interesting.
Something like 16, 17, 1800 per ounce, maybe. Flirting with 2000 a little bit, flirting with 1500 a little bit, but pretty tight range for over a decade.
Yeah.
And then a big doubling.
Yeah.
And so, whereas obviously Bitcoin has had like incredible multiple cycles and an incredible appreciation over that entire time.
Yeah.
And even if you look prior to 2010, there's fewer pops in gold than there's in Bitcoin.
Yeah, fair enough.
But they're big movements, and then it tends to hold them, but then it's like moves sideways for like a decade. So probably moving forward, we'll see like the 10x appreciation in Bitcoin over whatever, something like 10 years, and we won't see 10x in gold. Well, it might be flat the next 10 years, or maybe it has one more pop the next 10 years, but that doubles or something.
Yeah.
So like in 10 years, Bitcoin's $1 million, gold is 6,000 or 7,000. And then, and that would kind of line up with most people's intuition, I think, about the risk reward of each investment. But let's look at that metric and see how it plays out.
Let's keep watching.
Yeah. Cool.
So someone should make it really nice. Danny, if you're listening to this, I know you're trying to vibe code a lot more. It'd be nice to have just like a simple like btcandgold.com or something, like just easy chart.
I like it.
It can speak for every like movement. Danny vibe coded the Bitcoin to US dollar.
And he could even have a waifu.
It's the Bitcoin speaker.